What up, everybody? In the first 4 seasons of BMF, there's been a strong focus on Meech and Terry's immediate family, the Flenorys, Charles, Lucille, and Nicole, even more than any specific member of the BMF organization, other than Meech or Terry. Either though I do wonder how much of their story will continue moving forward if the series continues with the season 5 or spinoff, now that Meech and Terry are a little bit older. Because personally, either though I enjoyed the Flenory family story and felt like they brought some of the best entertainment value to the show, I do feel like that storyline has kind of ran its course, and if the series does continue, personally, I would like to see the focus be more on the BMF organization and other members that come alongside Meech and Terry more than the Flenory family. But with that said, one of the main storylines concerning the Flenory family in season 4 was Nikki's pregnancy. And the question everybody wants to know, who is really Nikki's baby daddy, Worm or Breeze? Either though Nikki has sworn from the time she found out she was pregnant, it was Breeze's child. Nikki started out season 4 graduating from high school and becoming the first person in the Flenory family to graduate from high school. And Nikki and Breeze both had big plans to go to college in Atlanta. Nikki got an academic scholarship to go to Morris Brown, and Breeze got a scholarship to go to Clark and play football. And the night of Nikki's graduation celebration, Meech showed up to her party with a gift for Nikki, a new car. So once Nikki had her own car and a little bit of freedom, her and Breeze took advantage and hooked up in the backseat of Nikki's new car before they even got to Atlanta for college. But Breeze had to head down to Clark soon after he graduated, earlier than Nikki because of his commitment to the football team. And as soon as they had finished hooking up, a cop caught them and took Nikki to jail because the car Meech gave her as a gift was stolen. And either though Nikki ultimately ended up beating this case, Charles and Lucille found out what Nikki and Breeze were doing in the back seat at the time they were caught by the cop. So after this, Nikki and Breeze went their separate ways temporarily as Nikki took a job at Terry's diner while Breeze headed to Clark for football training. Around this same time, Worm, who had been one of Terry's drivers going back to season 3, got demoted in Terry's organization for violating Terry's dress code for dressing too flashy. And because of that, he was now assigned to picking Nikki up from work and giving her a ride home. But when Worm was supposed to be giving Nikki a ride home, he was smoking a blunt in Terry's restaurant when him and Nikki hooked up for the first time. And at this point, Nikki expressed to LaWanda that she was starting to be more interested in Worm than she was Breeze. But with that said, Nikki likely wasn't the only person who cheated at this point in time, because it showed Breeze on the phone talking to Nikki, only to get off the phone to talk to a couple girls who invited him to a party. Then a little while after this, Terry went to the Flenory household to make sure everybody was good as he was about to head to Atlanta, only to find out that Nikki was throwing a party because Lucille was out of town on a church trip and Charles was working the overnight shift. And when Terry went into Nikki's room to find out what was going on, he found Worm hiding in the closet and threw him down the stairs. The next time we saw Worm, he had a cast on his wrist because of that. But around the same time, Nikki was having morning sickness symptoms, and Wanda told her that she needed to get a pregnancy test, only for Nikki to find out that she was pregnant. And like I said, from the time Nikki first found out she was pregnant, she insisted that it was Breeze's child. But just like how Nikki thought that hooking up with Breeze in her car would prevent Lucille from finding out what she did, Lucille also found out that Nikki hooked up with Worm when Lucille figured out that Nikki was pregnant and confronted her about it when Terry overheard what was being said and asked Nikki if it was Worm's child. And either though Nikki again insisted that it was Breeze's baby, Terry still thought it was necessary to threaten Worm to make sure to tell him that if the baby was his, that he was going to do right by his sister. But once Breeze found out that Nikki was pregnant, he put college and football on hold to move back to Detroit to be there for Nikki and his baby. Then we get to Nikki going into labor, and when her water broke, she was a little early according to Lucille, either though it didn't say how early she was. And I think that would be a clue that it was Breeze's child because the fact that Nikki hooked up with him first. If the child would have been late, I think that would have been more of a clue that it was Worm's child. But with that said, Nikki's already somewhat treating Breeze like a stepdaddy, not giving him any input in what she named her son, calling him Demetrius after Meech, something Breeze definitely wasn't too happy about, either though he didn't say anything. We could tell by his facial expressions. And even when Nikki was in labor and had to have her emergency C-section, she chose Lucille to go in with her instead of Breeze. But once Nikki gave birth, we get a clue on the side that it could potentially be Worm's child, as Nikki was holding her baby when Charles and Lucille walked in, and she tried to get them to say that her baby looks like his father, when Lucille and Charles just looked at each other before somewhat agreeing. Then there was the time jump at the end of episode 10, when everybody was at Terry's diner for him and Marquisha's going away party. And Worm was there, and he looked at Nicole's baby when Nicole told Worm not to worry, that it's not his. But keeping in mind how Charles and Lucille looked at each other when Nikki asked him if the baby looked like his father. Because at this point, when Nikki was talking to Worm and he was looking at the baby, we can see Lucille in the background looking at Worm. I think this was a subtle clue showing that Lucille noticed that Nikki's baby looks like Worm. And at this point in time, we also found out that Terry put Breeze on in the game, so he's able to take care of Nikki and his son. But that could end up complicating things even more, because that likely means that Breeze and Worm will be working together, as they're both part of Terry's Detroit crew now. Not to mention, T putting Breeze on in the game now brings the same drama back to Nikki's front door that she's been in her whole life, with her brothers being in the game. Now she won't be able to escape that and live a different kind of life now that her baby daddy Breeze is also in the game. And this is something else that I'm sure Terry did behind Meech's back, because I don't think Meech would want the heat that close to his little sister with Breeze in the game now. Keep in mind, Terry already put Nikki in the line of fire while she was pregnant earlier in season 4, as he had her bringing him money through the airport, and Meech was definitely pissed off when he found out about that. Then after the time jump at the end of episode 10, T's entire family back in Detroit was in the line of fire when Boom's hitters shot up Terry's diner. Ironically, at this point, Terry was getting introduced to LaWanda's new man, DeMarcus, when he was telling DeMarcus that he was always going to look out for his. So as Terry told Meech that the reason he stayed behind in the D was to look out for his family, at this point, the best thing that Terry could do to look out for his family moving forward would be to leave Detroit so his family isn't getting caught up in the middle of Terry's wars. And there you have it. Let me know in the comment section who you think Nikki's baby daddy is. Is it Breeze or is it Worm? As well as your thoughts, theories, and predictions.